Come on in, Clark County. It's Rob Anderson with Reform Clark County, and today we have just a special guest in studio, Eileen Quiring O'Brien, who is candidate for Clark County Auditor, and we're going to have a nice chat. But before we do, hit the like button, the share, help get the word out. Share this with friends and family here in Clark County so that they can stay engaged and be informed. And if you can, support the show. I'd appreciate it and could use your help in any way that you can. You can either go to givesendgo.com, put in Reform Clark County, and you can make a reoccurring gift, or you can make a super large, generous gift. All is appreciated. So today in studio, we have Eileen Quiring O'Brien. She's running for Clark County Auditor, and I'm super glad that she's here. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. It's really great to be here, Rob.
Well, I'm super glad. I've been looking forward to this conversation and sitting down. We've known each other for a while, and top of mind is kind of for me. Why in the world are you jumping back into the lion's den? I mean, God love you. I mean, but I'm just wondering, like, what's going on?
Well, I watched what was happening in Clark County, and I was pretty discouraged. And I really feel that this is my calling, just generally, to participate in the political realm. So I came back. And I will tell you, I had phone calls saying, "When are you coming back?" So
yeah,
that's why.
Yeah.
I'm back because I love Clark County, and I really want to serve.
Well, I'm not surprised, really, because knowing your background, I mean, this isn't your first rodeo. So,
Right.
I mean, so you've served for like state rep, right?
Yes.
So you've served, obviously, Clark County.
Yes.
And Clark County chair. What am I missing?
Okay. I also served in the state senate.
Okay.
My peers elected me as a majority whip, so somebody must have thought that I had some capability for leadership.
So after auditor, I mean, you know what's next?
Yeah.
President, Eileen.
I think retirement might be next.
Retirement's overrated.
Yes, it is. That's true.
So let me ask you, as you kind of, you're campaigning and you're talking and knocking on doors and parades and, all this stuff, what do you think voters want most from an auditor?
I really believe that the auditor's office is an office where the truth is paramount. And I don't think it's a partisan position at all. It really requires somebody to be able to go in and look very carefully at all of the various things that go on with the auditor's office. And basically, that's what I believe they want. They want somebody who is truthful and capable, actually, of asking tough questions. And I would say particularly because somebody has been in that office for almost 30 years. Mm-hmm. And that's all fine and good, except that when somebody leaves, there really needs to be fresh eyes taking a look.
Oh, for sure. I mean, it's and really the approach, in my opinion, of Kimsey has been, on the outside very professional, but on the inside very partisan, very picking kind of winners and losers and trying to, influence that. And man, I can't even imagine what might be found. And it would be, it's good for government, it's good for fresh eyes to come in and see what's going on, and I think that's an important aspect as well.
I absolutely do as well, and we've seen throughout the nation a lot of fraud, waste, and abuse,
mm-hmm.
and so I think that you have to look for those things, and I will do that. I also believe that people's hard-earned taxpayer money is precious to them. So when they send it in, for the various taxes and fees that they pay, they want to know for sure that it's going where it was intended to go. So the auditor's office does that. But more than anything, the auditor's office administrates the elections in this county. And I would say that is probably my number one focus when I get into the auditor's office, because I believe that we need to really have clean voter rolls. We need to eliminate anybody who no longer resides in the county. And we also need to remove those that have been deceased. So it takes a real careful look, and so that's my number one thing. I think there have been improvements in the elections division, especially the remodel. It allows for a lot of observation that in the past was compartmentalized, and so I see that as a very positive move. But indeed, we still need to look very carefully at all those records.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest issues that kind of stands out, and it's not getting a lot of attention, but it's the old Brad Benton case that was brought before, and I believe it's still an appeal process, if I'm not mistaken. That's the last I heard. And what that case showed is over 1,200 votes were cast by people who didn't reside in the 18th LD. And so you had people, obviously people move throughout the county, and so you had people outside of the 18th LD, and you had people outside of the state getting a ballot, casting a ballot, and, when an election comes down to 30, 40, 50 votes, which we've had a few just in the last few years, that matters.
It does matter. And it's interesting, there's an RCW that the legislature actually passed saying that ballots should be forwarded. When I get into the auditor's office, there is a state association of auditors. And I'm sure they talk about various legislation that they would put forward to legislators and ask them to pass. I will definitely be working on with fellow auditors to pass legislation that they change forwarding of the ballot. This particular primary, there are 25 ballot styles. That tells you it's almost even as if you moved out of a precinct, you would still not have the right ballot. So I just think it was ill-formed to actually forward any ballots anywhere. Because they're not going to get the correct ballot. And then they have an opportunity to actually fill that out and send it back in, and they don't even really reside in that particular district, possibly, and as you say, out of state as well.
No, I mean, if we're going to trust our elections, and again, you can put all the other kind of stuff aside. I mean, this issue, it was in a court, as in evidence that 1,200 or so votes just weren't from that district. And I think that, again, there's a lot of elections that are decided by less than 1,200 votes.
True.
And so this is important. And you mentioned it, you got to have the will to say, hey, what can we do? Are there solutions within the law?
Right.
Because there is some gray area. There is some things that auditors can do in order to, make sure that that's happening and take steps to clean up, like you said, the voter rolls. And some people kind of think of the worst case scenario, illegals. But if we just focused on this part, that would be a huge improvement.
Yes, that's very true. And I think people, when they hear somebody say clean up the voter rolls, that's what they think. They think, well, there aren't that many illegals listed, very possibly. Well, it's the entire list. It's not just looking for illegals. Surely we'll look for those as well, but if there are any, we'll find them and cull them out as well. But really, there are people who are deceased that are still on the rolls, and in order to take a person who has died off of the rolls, there has to have been an obituary in the paper of record in order to do that. And I've seen, when I was on the canvassing board, I was aware of somebody who would say, okay, well, my father is getting a ballot and he's deceased. Can you take him off the records? That's not enough.
Right.
Having a family member come and say you're deceased is not enough to take somebody off the ballot.
Yeah, I mean, it's important to do that because we have seen a real dwindling of voter participation, and so unfortunately, the Auditor Kimsey has taken a real hostile approach, almost hyper defensive, rather than saying, hey, let's sit down, let's talk about these things, let's find mutual solutions. Kind of that nonpartisan approach.
Right.
He wouldn't do that, and so it actually stoked more, I think, concerns,
Yes.
and possibly intentional to maybe stymie conservative votes. I don't know. I'm just saying that's just kind of a theory that I have. But recently, the auditor. I did some public records requests, and Charter Commissioner Ann Donnelly went on the record and exposed that Auditor Kimsey was working behind the scenes. He was lobbying charter commissioners to thwart the prioritization for public safety charter amendment. And, this was stunning. In fact, I witnessed it as well. I know that that he was being involved and using his office and his influence to try to torpedo the public safety prioritization charter amendment, and she called him out on it. I saw through public records that it went deeper than that, and I don't know if you knew about this, but basically Kimsey, according to the public records that I have, Kimsey was using his office, using county resources, tapping other department heads to conduct a presentation of an opposition response. And so he was using that, and he brought in, department heads, and he also included none other than Mitchell Kelly.
I see.
And so, as you know, as everyone knows, I mean, Mitchell Kelly is also running for auditor. And I just found this to be interesting that not only the sitting auditor, but then Mitchell Kelly, who's running for auditor, was involved in really trying to kind of pick winners and losers and put their thumb on the scale and create this. And so much so that they even did a dry run presentation so they can sharpen it, and in order to effectively oppose the charter amendment. What do you think about that?
I think that's extremely disappointing. I don't think it is. We elect charter review commissioners in order to have a group of people who are actually coming up with ideas to change the charter and bring them forward to the people.
Yeah, it's separate. It's like
It is separate.
Yeah.
It's very disappointing to hear it and know that. But I'm afraid I'm not that shocked.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to say, I am not that shocked.
Yeah, because it's one thing we know that Mitchell Kelly was tasked to do the analytics side or data side, but why is he also participating in helping Kimsey sharpen his opposition presentation?
Exactly.
To me, that goes too far.
Yeah, I agree. It goes way too far. The person that's creating the numbers in order to say, how much will this cost us, is part of the opposition? No, that's unacceptable.
Yeah,
unacceptable.
It's really using your office, I think, in an unprofessional and in a partisan way. And it's interesting when Ann Donnelly, brought this up in a public meeting, and then Ken Vance of Clark County Today wrote an article about it. Greg Kimsey responded, so he didn't deny that he was working to oppose it. In fact, he justified it by saying that the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution protects my ability to speak in support of or against, among other topics. So basically, it was kind of a confession of just saying, hey, yeah, I did it. Too bad, and pound sand. And I think that this just really shows that it's something that needs to be addressed by the Charter Commission. And I'm wondering, if you think that executive positions like the auditor, like the clerk, like the sheriff, like all the others, that they should really try to stay nonpartisan.
I believe they should, and I think it was completely unprofessional of him to do this. And even if it is his First Amendment right, he holds a position that is a position of trust. And this shows a great deal of untrustworthiness.
Yeah, well, and another fact that came in that ties in, so we've got Mitchell Kelly, we've got Greg Kimsey, who were involved in this, but there was another candidate, actually her husband, so Ted Gath. So Kimsey reached out to, according to the public records that I saw, he reached out to Ted Gath, who's an attorney, to form, a opposing legal opinion, which Ted Gath is the husband of Sharon Wiley, another candidate for auditor. And so Ted Gath provided this legal opinion that was opposing it. Also gave it in public, but sent it to Kimsey, which Kimsey then forwarded to the PA's office to try to influence the PA's office as well. So we just see really kind of working in a way that's troubling.
Yes, sort of like an octopus that's working every which way to defeat certain things. The auditor's office is not a policy-making office.
Right.
It should not be a policy-making office.
Yeah, in a way, by doing that, you're shaping, you're creating policy.
Absolutely shaping policy.
Yeah.
So it's very disappointing. Unfortunately, not surprising, having known Mr. Kimsey for a few years.
Yeah.
And it's also very disappointing to know that apparently his protege, Mitchell Kelly, is playing along.
Yeah.
I guess he's very ambitious to get this position.
Right. Well, and then Sharon Wiley's husband,
right.
Involved in that. So it's just this weird situation.
Yes.
But wait, there's more.
Oh,
unfortunately, another little fun fact is that all three of your opponents, the Clark County candidates for auditor, recently went to an Indivisible meeting, which I don't know if you're familiar with the Indivisible Greater Vancouver, but I think they're kind of a hate group, and I say that in the sense because they hate Trump, they hate ICE, they hate the FBI, they hate Israel and Jews, and it's just the list goes on where that goes on. Well, for some reason, these three candidates decided to show up to make their pitch to the Indivisible crowd, but before they did, Greg Kimsey went and talked to them, and I found it pretty fascinating. Greg Kimsey actually encouraged them to not use the post office in their when they vote, to drop it off at the ballot boxes, and he discouraged them from using the post office, which I've never heard that from him. I've only heard, oh yeah, it's great, it's awesome, the mail service, you bet, drop it in there, it's safe, it's secure, drop it in the ballot box or what, it doesn't matter. And I was really surprised by that.
That is interesting. I'd like to find out from him why he said that.
Yeah, because, this is a major component of this chain of custody, and for him to discourage people. But anyway, so he did that, and also he brought up ballot box cameras, which
yes.
he opposed originally, and he kind of bragged that they're being installed everywhere, and like this is a great update, and I just chuckled
I
because
guess when you have fires in ballot boxes, you need some cameras.
right. Yeah. And that was one of the big concerns. And he fought against the Restore Election Confidence Initiative. And he called out that we really, hey, we haven't had, in 20 years, we haven't really had an issue here. So we don't need cameras. And then sure enough, few months later. What's interesting, too, about that is, you probably know that we had over 400 ballots that were destroyed.
Oh,
And the reason why is because they had to wait. So the first responders couldn't put out the fire and had to wait for Kimsey to show up and for him to give them access. So there was no protocol that Kimsey provided to the first responders. And so they didn't know really quite how to handle that. I don't blame them.
Right.
But, that's why 400 ballots
lost.
burned. And is because of that delay, because Kimsey installed over-the-counter fire suppressors that weren't designed for ballot boxes. So, which they've updated those.
They have updated, yes.
And they're installing the cameras, so that's pretty good. But anyways, going back, sorry, I'm rabbit trailing here a little bit. Forgive me. But so then after Greg Kimsey spoke, then all three candidates spoke. Ty Stober, in which he shared how really he didn't talk much about his resume because honestly, it's a little thin in my opinion, but he talked about that he helped with like gay marriage and like how that becoming law of domestic marriage or something like that. Really made that pitch, which I thought was interesting for an auditor that's your pitch. And then Sharon Wiley got up there and said about how she's fought for feminism and stuff like that. And so it was kind of interesting. Yeah. And Mitchell Kelly just kind of like, I've been a bean counter in the elections office for 8 years or 10 years or whatever it was. But I mean, I was like, okay, that's interesting. But I think it's fascinating to me that these three candidates decided to. Here, I'll give you a second to. It's funny, but it's not.
Tragic,
It's tragic.
Actually.
But I just find it kind of interesting that all three of them decided to go this real far left group and court votes. And
I find it interesting, Rob, that normally when you have a meeting where you have a number of candidates come, you usually invite all of the candidates. Now, what you've told me about Indivisible, I probably would not have accepted the invitation. We have nothing in common, I can see, but I think to me it's disturbing, and it's not fair, and it shows the lack of fairness on the part of the sitting auditor, and his bias, I guess, is what you would say, his total bias. It's too bad, and interestingly, what you tell me they focused on during their time to give their pitch clearly is not anything to do with the auditor's office.
Yeah. So I thought it was pandering.
Yes.
And I thought that it was just kind of interesting. So what's most important to you? If you're the future Clark County auditor, what do you think is most important to you?
Well, for one thing, as I said before, I think really making sure that our elections are as safe as they can possibly be, tracking our tax dollars so that we know that the money that we are sending in is going to the place where it's intended to go, and also our public records. When you record a deed or you get a marriage license, that should all be done expeditiously and cordially. And then we also have a licensing department where you license vehicles and vessels. And all of those offices that are front-facing offices, I also believe, need to be very courteous, professional, and expeditious. We need to take care of business in that way. But for sure, I really believe the number one focus is elections because it's a large part of that office's responsibility. And our sacred right to vote needs to be taken very seriously. We want every legal vote to count, every legal vote to count,
Yeah.
and encourage people to vote. But we want the legal people
Right.
on the list. And,
Right.
and by that I mean residents and living people
Right.
and citizens.
Yeah, and those
So,
that live in that
the
district,
district,
because they're making,
absolutely.
think about like school levies and fire levies
Mm-hmm.
and all these kind of things that, I mean, if someone outside of the district or outside of the state
Right.
is voting and in shaping the outcomes of that, to me, that's a real problem.
It actually it negates votes that are
Sure.
here, genuine votes.
Yeah.
So this is a position of trust.
Yeah.
I think that I have proven that I am trustworthy by holding the positions that I have held, and it is my hope that people will see that and definitely cast their vote for me,
Yeah.
so that I can take that position and help to restore trust
Yeah.
if any has been lost.
Well, I think there's definitely room for restoring trust. And so how can people find out more about your campaign?
My website is eileenforauditor.com, and that's FOR, not the number 4. Go there, check it out, find out what we're saying, what the news is, some of the video clips, and my those that have endorsed me, etc. Go check out the website.
Because I got to say, for all the people that are running, I think you are spinning circles around many of the candidates, both sides. Like so your effort. I'm in awe of the effort that's going
Well,
on.
thank you, Rob.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate you being here. This conversation.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, that's Reformcast for this episode, and I hope you enjoyed our conversation with Eileen. And you go to her website and check out more information that's on the screen right now. Go to and find out more about her campaign. And also hit the like button, the share, and get the word out. And if you can, support the show by going to givesendgo.com, put in Reform Clark County, and make a generous donation, either recurring or one time. And don't forget, you, with God's help, are the catalyst to reform. See you next time.